Well, now, question is how to proceed. Looking at the motor, I think it would have to go out of the frame that direction, only because this whole side case of the motor right here is larger, and it seems like it's pretty open on this side, so it looks like it would exit out this side of the frame a lot easier than going the other way. And as far as how to proceed, well, let's see. You can see a motor mount down in the front there. It almost makes me think that's a very long bolt. Goes through the whole side, from this side to the other side. And then the parts that actually goes through on the motor are attached by that long bolt to a bracket. Now what's interesting is I can see 4 bolts underneath here. So in my mind, I'm thinking if I remove these 4 bolts, I can leave the mounts right on the motor and the whole thing should be free from the front. And then I've got the same thing going on in the back here. I got 2 and 2. That would correspond to, I see a mount back there, and then there must be one, yeah, there's one back here, back of the drive shaft. So I mean, that seems like it would be a lot easier to take those 4 bolts out of the bottom of the frame. And then we've got this right here. Looks like another mount that's also attached to this frame piece here. It actually is bolted on here and here. So I don't know if it's just a matter of removing this bolt. I'm not sure if this one goes all the way through. Well, I just noticed there was a washer sitting on top of here, so there's a washer that sits on top of these spots right here. Those look like they were long gone. So I'm going to put that in my hardware. Take a quick look around, see if the other one fell down or if it was already gone. Well, if this bolt goes all the way through to the other side, then it terminates somewhere behind the secondary clutch. So hopefully that's not the case, because then that means the secondary clutch is going to be pulled before you can get the motor out. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to try and take this bolt out and see what happens. Well, good news is that didn't apparently just terminate into a nut on the other side that would just keep turning. It must terminate into something captive, because I was able to just unscrew it, and it's just basically it's a huge mount bolt comes out, and then it looks like once this bolt is out, this piece right here just comes right out. It's a spacer. And so now I've got one of the mounts disconnected. So the question is, if I undo all those bolts in the bottom, will that actually free the motor up? You know, other than of course the obvious problems of the wiring and the hoses. As far as the drive shaft goes, I pulled this rubber boot back. It looks like the shaft, from what I can see, it looks like it's probably got a splined end that actually engages the female spline on the U-joint that's right here. So I'm hoping what's going to happen is that once the motor's unbolted, if we rotate the motor out that way, that it's going to want to uncouple from this. At least that's the theory I'm going to go with for now. It's interesting to note that there's actually a spline shaft on the front here. So it looks like they use the same exact motor in the 4-wheel drive version of this, and the only difference is that they, you know, run a U-joint off of here, get an angled shaft to go up to the front, and then you can even see on the frame there's actually the mounting holes are there for the front differential. So it looks like they use the same frame on the 4-wheel drive unit. Okay, there's the 8 little bolts I took out of the bottom of the frame and appear to go into the motor mounts, the lower motor mounts. You can See, it looks like they've got red Loctite on them. That makes sense. I'm sure you don't want those loosening up and falling out. Looks like I might be on the right track here. I can now move the motor. And the question is, what else do I need to get out of the way before it'll come on out? It also goes without saying that a while ago I had removed this top motor mount bolt, and this motor mount actually swivels. Once you remove the bolt, you can actually swivel it out of the way, so that's convenient. So now I'm going to remove some of the things that I'm pretty sure obviously are going to have to be disconnected or removed. I'm going to disconnect the linkages here for the shifter, and I'm going to remove these bolts here to take this shifter out of the way altogether. I'm going to see if I can get in there and disconnect the exhaust pipe. That's going to be another thing that's holding me up. And then I'm going to remove the carburetor, get that out of the way. It's a little tight, but by turning the wheel you can get a socket in here and remove the nuts off of the studs here that hold this little yoke on, and then just let that drop out of the way, and then I put the nuts back on so I know where they are. Did that on both sides, so now once I get the rest of the exhaust pipe disconnected on the other side, I should be able to pull this pipe out and get it out of there. And then over here on this side, I just dropped this this whole assembly down, taking these two bolts out right here. I've reinstalled them so I know where they are from this bracket, and what that does is that it's gonna separate this linkage here. So I should be able to take this whole box with the linkage out with the motor from this side, if all goes well. So now I'm gonna disconnect the pipe. This pipe is a solid pipe. There's no, like on the Arctic Cat, I think I had a break somewhere around here where I could actually disconnect this pipe into a separate piece. This pipe looks like it goes uninterrupted behind these heat shields all the way up to the muffler connection right here. So I'm going to try and get this clamp undone here on the muffler, and then I should be able to get this pipe off. I've got this clamp undone nice and loose, but that's probably rusted in there pretty well, and it doesn't want to look like it wants to move. And then also this pipe is stuck inside here, so what I would like to do is I'm going to see if I can just get a block of wood maybe into there and try and tap this loose. If I can't get this to pop out on this end easily, I might take these bolts out up here and remove the muffler, and then that way I'll be able to wiggle this whole pipe back and forth to break this free. Muffler mounting bolts were easy to get out. I reinstalled them so I won't misplace them, but this muffler is still really stuck on right at this point here, even though I do have this clamp loosened. But I now was able to break the header pipe off from the cylinders, and I might be able to just wiggle it around enough to get it out as a complete unit. Alright, muffler came off as a whole assembly, no problem. So I don't have to worry about that now. And now I'm going to remove this vent tube right here. It goes into the front of the motor. I need to get a better look at the back of the engine here, so I'm going to try and remove the whole airbox assembly while I'm at it. Also this duct and the carburetor. Okay, this vent line on the carburetor goes through a hole right here on the frame, and this idle adjustment clips in right down here. Okay, now I remove the airbox and the carburetor and the duct here, and it's easy to see where this other mount is now, how it works. It's actually a bracket, so the easy way to get that out is to just remove this bracket, which is bolted up here and then down here, and then this whole bracket, now that I've got that long bolt out of the back, will actually come out. More red Loctite on these two bolts. Now this duct has to be disconnected. There's actually a clamp here to get this into two pieces here, and then clamp here. and there's just enough room to get a screwdriver up from underneath through this gap to get on that. Okay, I did this duct right here, this plastic one, and it kind of interferes with the tie rod here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out completely, and this is actually held in at the top here by a bolt right there, small bolt. I should be able to get my socket extension in a universal joint, slip it in there so that I don't have to go through the trouble of taking this little guard off. Or maybe I'll just take this top screw out if it comes out easy enough. But if the screw gives me a fight, then I'm just going to slip a extension with a U-joint on it through there. Okay, once you get the screw out, then you can just pull up on this duct, and this flexes enough so you can pull it right out through this. And I was able to get this top screw out, which by pulling this out to the side gave me easy access with a universal joint on the end of my socket wrench. Still hanging up in the back here when I try and pull it out, so I think it might be the drive shaft here that's following me up now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this wire right here. It goes to this little sending unit. Just remove this rubber cap off to the side carefully and unscrew this screw, and then get this wire off. And then there's another one here which is behind this coolant tank, so I'm going to have to drop these bolts here out to get the coolant tank out of the way so I can get that wire off of that sending unit. Got a ground wire here on the block, take that wire off, and then the cable to the starter here, take that off, and that'll minimize any wires I might break in the process of trying to wrench this thing out. Alright, so on these sending unit wires, I already took this one off. The one to the rear is the green one, and the one towards the front is the red one. Now there's a sending unit right up here. This is just a quick disconnect. And I had already removed the ignition coil and actually also found that the wire was very loose inside the boot here, so that's why the boot's still on here. Okay, I took the starter cable motor off. The starter cable off the starter motor, and then I noticed these two cables here that go down. These look like they're probably going to the magneto and flywheel ignition down inside the motor here, and they don't unplug from there. They go all the way up through here, and then they go to these two plugs right here. So this is how you disconnect these, but they go through this wire tie right here. So if not going to fit, if those plugs won't fit through the wire tie, I'll have to cut the wire tie and replace it later. Now it's time to disconnect the coolant hoses. Here's the upper coolant hose connects here, and the lower coolant hose connects here to the water pump housing. So the first thing I'm going to do is disconnect the upper one. Well, got the coolant lines disconnected. I'm at the point now where I think I should be able to move this motor out. I'm going to try and move it forward first to see if I can disengage the shaft from the drive shaft, the output shaft from the drive shaft universal joint here. I'm hoping that I'm correct on that, and that's just a slip fit into a spline. Well, it looks like I was right about the drive shaft just slipping out. You can see the splines right there. They're on their way out. I was able to pull the motor out that way, but it's a real tight fit. So I'm hoping it's just going to clear as I start to swivel it. But I already was bumping up against here, so we'll see. Try and wrestle it out. Okay, I pulled the motor forward far enough to disengage the shaft here. Then I was able to rock it out. I got up to this point here, and now I'm hitting this bracket that the shifter mounts to. So I could maybe lift the back of the motor up just enough to get that to go underneath it. Maybe still get it out that way. But now I think maybe it was supposed to come out on this side. If I remove this mount right here, this bolt here, and this bolt up here, I can remove this whole bracket and then just remove this duct assembly here. I've got to disconnect this breather hose anyways, and not sure where that hooks up to up there, but I'm sure I can figure it out. If I take this whole thing out, it might come out this side. But I'm going to try and get it out the other side first. Okay, so I removed this screw, which I just put back in there so I wouldn't lose it, and this screw up here, which I put back so I wouldn't lose it. I removed this screw, pulled this aside to get to that screw. That allowed me to pull out this whole plastic duct assembly. Now I'm going to remove this bolt up here and this bolt down here so I can take this bracket out. Alright, this definitely looks like this is the side that it was supposed to come out of, because once I got that duct out of the way here and this bracket out, this is a lot more open. It doesn't have this bracket here, this big bracket right here sticking down in the way. So I'm going to try and pull it out this side now. Alright, it's coming out this way. Now it's kind of hitting this. I guess I should have taken this off, but I think I can just tilt it up far enough to get it to go underneath that. And it's out. Motor's out. I noticed when I'd taken it out, this rubber thing appeared here. This looks like it's just a big rubber bumper that sits right here. Got a hole through the middle of it so you can get to the oil drain plug. So I want to make sure I don't lose that. You can see all the dirt that gets stuck up underneath there and grease from years of riding and not being able to wash underneath there well. And then this was all nice and clean inside here, and now I got a little bit of dirt in there from the whole process of taking it apart. I guess I should have stuffed a rag in there before I took it out. I'll make sure I wipe that out really well before I put something to cover it to protect it from the elements. Other than that, I got it out without having to drain the oil, because I was worried about the oil filter here getting in the way, but it turns out it wasn't an issue at all. So now I can start working on this motor and seeing what's going on with it.